Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Fleming, and today we are making a recording of Forgiveness 2. So, Forgiveness 1 was a favorite of many people, and so we are coming out with Forgiveness 2. So, I attend about 5 A Course in Miracle meetings weekly. I attend 2 Course in Miracles meetings on Sundays. I attend one on Monday. I attend one on Tuesday. And then I also facilitate one of my own on Thursdays. And based on my experiences in many of the meetings, because when I go to these meetings, to not only learn, because that's the whole purpose, or that's my whole purpose of going to these meetings, to continue to learn, but also to get a pulse of what my brothers and sisters, what are some of their viewpoints and views on forgiveness, on peace, on a number of things. Today's subject matter is forgiveness, and so based on what I have experienced further in going to different meetings about forgiveness, I have compiled an additional list of forgiveness myths. Meaning they are not true, they are not real. So let's just get right to it. So the first forgiveness myth that I want to discuss, that I even had this concept before I started in Course in Miracles. I mean, I remember doing some forgiveness work, but when I forgive, I only have to do it once. When I forgive, I only have to do it once. Well, now, if you're talking about the same thing that you are forgiving, it is possible to only have to forgive for that one instance, so for that one thing that you are working on as far as your forgiveness, one time. However, more often than not, it usually requires more than once to actually even forgive just one thing, just because many of us are unwilling to completely let something go. And because of that, we will do forgiveness work on it, and we perceive it as a process. And when we are not willing to let things go, yes, it does become a process. It is a process at that point. But it is possible to completely let something go completely if you are willing to actually let it go. Now, how often does that happen? Maybe that doesn't happen very often. Maybe it happens more often than not with some people, maybe less often than not with others. But if you still feel yourself having or experiencing a charge on something that you have already performed forgiveness work previously, then by all means perform forgiveness work on that again. Whereas you may have let a number of things go and you feel a lot better, you feel more peace, and then something comes up later on, say maybe a couple of months down the line, and it's the same type of situation, but and you feel it, but it doesn't feel as much. It just takes you a little bit out of your peace, but not like it used to take you out of your peace. Then you're making progress. You're making progress. And so just forgive it some more. Forgive it some more. Just do the same thing. I forgive it, I release it, I let it go. And you will see if going through a forgiveness process for everything is what works for you, then that's fine. because you're still showing the willingness. You're still willing to let it go. Maybe you're not able to let it go, or maybe you're not willing to let it all go completely, but you're still willing to let it go. And you will see over time that when you experience the same type of scenario, the same thing again, you will feel it affects you less and less. So yes, the first time before you ever did any forgiveness, yes, it probably took you from 0 to 100 in a matter of a minute. The second time, maybe a couple of months, you've already done some forgiveness work. Now it doesn't take you to 0 to 100 anymore. Now it just takes you 0 to 20 or 0 to 30. That's more manageable. Do some more forgiveness work. Do some more forgiveness work. Release it, surrender it, and let it go. Just forgive it, release it, surrender it, and let it go. Then if you encounter it again, say a couple of months after that, and it just takes you to 0 to 10, which is just basically almost like, just somebody brushing your cheek, or just, 0 to 10, or it's just really nothing compared to what it used to do a long time ago. Do it again. Forgive it, release it, and let it go. Just let it go. Until it no longer not only takes you from your people, until it really doesn't even affect you at all. That's how it works. Now, as far as forgiving everything on only one time, no, that there are so many things that we experience in life, and I am 40 in my 40s. I'm in my 40s, and so I have over 40 years of things. So, there's some of those things, could have been repressed. Some of those things, I didn't even realize needed to be forgiven until later on. So you never know. So to actually think, after just doing a lot of forgiveness work and forgiving this person and forgiving that person and things like that, because I did that. It was at 5 a.m. I forgave everybody who I could think of at that time. And I really felt wonderful. I felt this huge lifting of a burden being lifted from me, and I felt free. But then later on, there were other things to forgive as well. So, and these things may have not been those things that I did forgiveness on, but, the chances that you will actually cover everything is remote. As a matter of fact, it's not even realistic to even think about that. So when I forgive, I only have to do it once. If we're talking about a particular instance or situation that requires forgiveness, it's possible. But if we're talking about only doing forgiveness once in your lifetime, no. Remember, when the disciples asked our master teacher Jesus how many times should we forgive, and his answer was 70 times 7. 70 times 7. So when I forgive, I only have to do it once? No, that is no. Unless we're talking about one instance and you're truly willing during that instance and you completely free yourself and let it all go, then, as far as that one instance, maybe. But at the same time, just doing forgiveness one time in your life, no. So let's move on to the next one. If I forgive, it might happen to me again. If I forgive, it might happen to me again. There are many of us, brothers and sisters, who are unwilling to forgive because they feel that once they forgive, then they are opening the door for it to happen again. If they forgive, then they are proclaiming to the universe that it is okay for this to happen to me again. So they feel that in not forgiving, that they have basically made a statement to the universe, and they have, and based on not forgiving it, they feel that this type of situation won't happen again, and that's a falsity. That's false thinking. Forgiveness is about just releasing and letting go. That's all it's about. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just about releasing, surrendering, and letting it go. It's about not wanting to feel depressed. It's about not wanting to feel anxiety. It's about not wanting or desiring to feel sad. That is what forgiveness is about. Forgiveness is a freeing energy. It is a liberating energy. It is meant so that we can be free. Okay, and this is a type of thinking that constricts, it binds. I don't want to forgive because it may happen. That's already out of fear. You're already proclaiming fear. I don't want to forgive because I'm fearful about this happening again. And anytime you try to justify something on the basis of fear, you're just opening yourself up for some fearful lessons is what you're doing. So that's pretty simple. If I forgive, it might happen to me again. It very may well happen again. But and if it happens again, we forgive it again. And that's all. If it happens again, we forgive it again. It's easy, simple. If it happens again, we forgive it again. That's all. So it's about, again, proclaiming that you love yourself. And if you love yourself, if you truly love yourself, everything that you do will be a testament to I love myself. And so if everything that you do says I love myself, then you will not entertain the thoughts of not forgiving so it won't happen again, because you love yourself and you're just going to want to forgive it again. If it happens again, you'll forgive it again. So we're moving right along. Let's move on to another forgiveness myth. If you forgive someone, you should forget it ever happened. Or to forgive is to forget. Well, if only that were true. If only that were true. I mean, but if that were true, brothers and sisters, if we could truly forgive and then forget, would we actually still retain the learning that came from the forgiveness? Because if it happens again and we have to go through the same thing again, then now what? So, as far as forgetting, no. Forgiveness is basically about releasing. It is about releasing. It is not about amnesia. It is about releasing. It is about choosing to see the perfection. Choosing to see the perfection in what happened. Choosing to see something other than the way that you're seeing it while you're experiencing difficulty in forgiving it. So, to give you an example, let's say, let's say someone breaks into your home. You could feel violated. You could be upset. You could experience a lack of peace. You could feel unsafe. You could feel frightened because someone just broke into your home. But what if you were in there? What if you were asleep or something like that? So you can choose that path, or you can choose to see it in another way. And that is what I mean by choosing to see the perfection in it. And you may not know how could I even see any remote way the perfection in someone breaking into my home. But if you open your mind to seeing the perfection of that, you will see the perfection of that if you just are willing enough to open your mind and see things in another way other than through the eyes of fear. This person that broke into your home that stole something, apparently they needed it. They needed it. Whatever it is, they needed it. And when it really comes to things, I mean, are they really worth it? Now, does that mean that we condone the behavior? No. But once the thing is gone and the person's already made it away, I mean, it's really not going to serve us to then, have to go through therapy and then have to get burglar bars and all kinds of stuff and things like that. That's constrictive thinking, brothers and sisters. That's living out of fear. Okay. And, another way of looking at it is if someone broke into my home, if this actually happened and someone broke into my home, okay, I'm feeling upset right now. I'm just playing this out, just giving you the scenario. I'm feeling upset right now, and I feel violated. I feel unsafe. I'm really upset. But I choose to see this differently. I choose to see this differently. I choose to see the perfection in this. Whatever that perfection may be, I know not. But I choose to see the perfection. I choose to see that there is a higher purpose in this. That is what I choose to see. I choose to see a higher purpose in this. My mother and I, give you another example. This is a real life example. My mother and I were just recently leaving a Christmas party. And I was driving my mother home from where the Christmas party was. And another car went through the stop sign. We were at a four-way stop sign. And I had the right of way and began to proceed after coming to a complete stop at the stop sign. As I went to proceed, the car that was at the other stop sign to my right, they decided to proceed after I proceeded. So I'm in the middle of the street and this car plows into my car. Okay. So I could choose to see things one way. And as a matter of fact, I did. I jumped out of the car, and no matter how much Course in Miracles I've been reading and all these videos I've been making, I completely, forgot all about Course in Miracles. It completely went out the window, brothers and sisters. And I was just like, what were you thinking? And this guy, he was so concerned about the welfare of my mother and I. He was so concerned. He was just like, are you okay? Is your mom okay? And, I had to realize that my mom was in the car, and I was like, are you okay, Mom? And stuff. Cause I had completely just was like, what are you thinking? But this guy, this person who hit us, who plowed into the car, he showed the type of love and care and concern that I talk about showing for my brothers and sisters when I make all of these videos. And so later on, when I was away from this situation and was able to think more clearly about what happened, I began to see that it was like I had wronged my brother. I began to see that, I had not responded out of love. My brother had responded out of love, but I had not responded out of love. I responded out of judgment. Okay? And so at that point, I began to do some forgiveness work. I began to forgive. And I began to forgive myself, and then I began to send love to my brother. And tell my brother, who I was recently involved in an accident with a couple of hours before, that I loved him. And thank you for the care that he demonstrated for me and for my mother. Now, this person was not in my presence to hear these things, but I was speaking to their higher self. And so that's what I mean when I say you choose. And now I am truly grateful for that experience. I'm truly grateful for that experience. So again, you never know. I mean, even my mother, she said she felt that like it was a blessing. She felt like it was a wake-up call for her. She has her own testimony about what happened as far as the accident at the stop sign. But when you choose to see things differently, you never know what sort of miracles that you will behold. Just want to use it as an example. So, all right. So, to forgive someone, you should forget it ever happened, or to forgive is to forget. Yeah, that's, we're not talking about forgiveness. We're not talking about forgetting things. We're not talking about amnesia. We're talking about forgiveness. We're talking about truly letting things go. We're talking about truly just learning from whatever lesson that whatever happened, the lesson that it contains. The lesson is what is important. So we're talking about the lesson here, and whatever that lesson is, okay? Whatever that lesson was, there was a lesson for me with the accident. There was a lesson for my mother. I don't know what her lesson was, but I just know what the lesson was for me at that, with the accident that we had. I will not forget this. I want to retain the lesson, so as far as forgiving someone and just to forget it, no. As far as forgiving someone and not holding that over their head, then yes, I would say that is an appropriate reaction to your brother. To forgive your brother and not hold it over their head that you forgave them for it, and to forgive your brother and just not hold it over their head. To forgive your brother and release it and let it go. If you choose not to be friends with that person, okay, that's fine. If you choose that you just can't be friends with this person, that's fine. If you forgive them, truly forgive them, no. If you truly forgive them and release it and let it go, there's nothing that says that you have to continue being friends with this person if you were a friend of this person. Okay? If you were a friend of this person, that doesn't have anything to do with forgiveness. If you forgive them and let it go, it doesn't mean that we all have to hold hands now. It doesn't mean that we all have to, walk around and hold hands. Don't have to do that. So once you've forgiven it, you release it, you let it go. Remember, forgiveness is for yourself. Forgiveness is the gift that you give yourself. It is the gift that you give yourself. So another forgiveness myth, and maybe not so much of a myth, but this forgiveness myth has to do with the mind. Forgiveness is difficult. Forgiveness is difficult. Well, my brothers and sisters, forgiveness can be difficult. It truly can be, if that is where your mind is. If your mind finds it difficult to let it go, then yes, forgiveness can be difficult. Forgiveness is only difficult when the mind finds difficulty in letting it go. Forgiveness itself is not difficult. And forgiveness is just a word. But the intent of forgiveness is freedom, is release, is grace, is salvation. Forgiveness is just a word like any other word. But the intent behind forgiveness, that is what sends forth the miracle. The miracle that changes our perception, that corrects our perception, that the miracle that changes our understanding of things. So, forgiveness is difficult. It does not have to be, brothers and sisters. Forgiveness, believe it or not, can actually be easy. It just depends on how willing you are in letting it go. So, again, you'd have to ask yourself, do I love myself? Do I love myself? Because if I love myself, then I forgive. Because I love myself. That is always a good question to ask. I brought that up. I mentioned that in Forgiveness 1. Do I love myself? If your answer is yes, I love myself, then let it go. Then show your love for yourself by letting it go, because forgiveness is an act of self-love. It is an act of self-love. It is not for the other person. It is for you, brothers and sisters. It is for you. So, this brings me to some forgiveness opportunities. So, I wanted to bring up some forgiveness opportunities. Opportunities to forgive. You know, we find opportunities to forgive all the time. I could be driving down the street. I find opportunities to forgive. I can be going into a grocery store. I find opportunities to forgive. I could be dealing with my kids, my teenage kids, and I find opportunities to forgive. There are opportunities to forgive all over this world. And every time I forgive, every time there's something that takes me out of my peace and I forgive it and release it, I feel better. I feel better. Anytime I'm taken out of my peace. So here are some forgiveness opportunities, and I just mentioned it. When you are not at peace, okay, when you are not at peace, there is an opportunity to forgive. When you are upset, when you are angry, when you are sad, when you are lonely, when you are depressed, when you are anxious, when you are critical, you find yourself being critical of people or being critical of yourself, that is an opportunity to forgive. But basically, all of these things evoke emotions. And these emotions, you can actually feel these emotions in the body. You can actually feel them. You can feel when you're sad. You can feel an emotional, you can feel an emotion, a chemical, emotional reaction happening in the body when sadness comes along. Just like you can feel it when you're happy. You can feel the emotion when you are happy. So when you feel these emotions and you feel an emotion of sadness, an emotion of anger, an emotion of fear, or where you're frightened, forgive it, release it, and let it go. It is just an illusion, brothers and sisters. It is just an illusion and nothing more. Just forgive it, release it, and let it go. Forgive it, release it, and let it go. So when you are not at peace is an opportunity for all of us to forgive. When any of us are not at peace, that's a time to forgive. When you perceive, another forgiveness opportunity, when you perceive your brother or sister as other than your equal. When you perceive your brother or sister as other than your equal. You know, we have all experienced times where we either felt superior or inferior to our brother or sister. We have felt times where we felt like we were looking down on our brother or sister. And then there were times when we were raised our brother and sister up on a pedestal. Both of these are false. Your brother and sister is your equal. And when you find yourself not in the presence of your equals with people, that is an opportunity to forgive. If you find that you are not perceiving yourself being in the presence of complete equality, that is the time to forgive. Whether it is from a perspective or perception of superiority or inferiority, that is a time to forgive. Because you are neither superior nor inferior to anyone. You are not superior or inferior to me. You are not inferior or superior to anyone. You're not even inferior to Master Teacher Jesus. He is your brother. You are his equal. He is your equal. When you find yourself not in the presence of your equals, that is the time to forgive. When you find yourself looking down on someone, for whatever reason, because it happens, it's happened to everyone. It's a practice. It is a practice in mind control and in perceiving things correctly. It is a practice in perception, in perceiving things correctly, because no one is my superior and no one is my inferior either. But I have at times in the past looked at myself being someone's superior. I have at times in the past looked at myself as being as being inferior to someone. I have in the past. I admit it. I admit it. So it is a practice, brothers and sisters. It's a practice. But anytime you feel this, anytime you find yourself looking at another in this way, that is a time to forgive. So, next, forgiveness opportunity. When you perceive that you or someone else has done something unforgivable. When you perceive that you or someone else has done something unforgivable. All right. Now, there is nothing that is unforgivable. No matter what we can think of, and I'm sure there are many of us that can come up with some arguments or would probably disagree with what I just now said. But there is nothing that is unforgivable. Okay? There is nothing that is unforgivable. Anyone can be forgiven. There is nothing that is unforgivable. There are no big or small things that need to be forgiven. It is all the same. There's no bigger or smaller. It is all the same. It either needs to be forgiven or it doesn't. All right? So what does that mean? What does that mean? That means that you can forgive someone that told a little white lie just like you could forgive Adolf Hitler. That's what that means. There are no big or small forgiveness. It either needs to be forgiven or it doesn't. If it takes you from your peace, then we forgive it. We forgive it, we release it, we let it go. So, when you perceive that you or someone else has done something unforgivable, unforgivable doesn't exist. Everything can be forgiven. You just have to be willing. Anything can be forgiven because there's no sin. We're already in a state of grace forever. Spirit is in a state of grace forever. Our reality is only spirit. Therefore, we are in a state of grace forever. Nothing is unforgivable for a child of God. Nothing. So, moving right along. Forgiveness opportunities. All right, now, when you feel compelled to not be your authentic self, or when you hide aspects of yourself in order to fit in with others. I'm going to repeat this. When you feel compelled not to be your authentic self, or to not be your authentic self, or when you hide aspects of yourself in order to fit in with others. You know, my brothers and sisters, I'm actually planning on doing another talk on integrity, and I'm going to be talking about this. But for the aspect of forgiveness and my talk on forgiveness, I'm talking about this right now in the aspect of forgiveness. My brothers and sisters, there is a lot of damage that can be done to yourself by trying to fit in or trying to compress aspects of yourself into what you feel are societal norms or what other people think that you should be. I wanted to take an opportunity to really talk about this one, to talk about this one at depth, which is kind of why we went through all of the other ones as quickly as we did. But this one right here is, this one right here is something that I have seen, not only in, that it was, I've done it myself, but I've seen people do it. I've seen people just do these things to themselves, as far as to hide and suppress beautiful aspects of themselves in order to fit in, because they were afraid of ridicule or some type of a bullying or something, where, because they felt this way or that way and they felt a backlash or something like that, then they began to repress it and things like that, because society told them that this is not right, this is not a right way to be or something like that, and so they bought into it. And so then they repressed part of themselves. They hid part of what God created. Part of their beauty was hidden in order to fit in to other people's idea of them. That requires forgiveness. For you are unlimited spirit, and there is none other like you. There has never been another before you, and there will never be another after you leave this place. You are truly unique. That is how your father, mother created you to be. You are truly unique. And when you hide your uniqueness, when you hide your gifts, when you hide your beauty, you rob the world. You rob the world of your beauty. For the world needs your beauty. The world needs your gifts. The world needs you. You are the savior of this world. And when you hide and show only a part of you that you have determined that the world wants to see, and then hide the other part, what actually happens with that, brothers and sisters, is then you create a shadow. You create a shadow at that point. So when you are hiding things, goals and beautiful aspirations, and then you're also hiding things on where that maybe you're not so proud of or whatever, but it's still part of you. It's still part of you, and so maybe you're hiding these things. You're just creating shadows. And so what happens when you create a shadow is it hasn't gone anywhere. Even though you have worked diligently at turning or molding yourself into the perfect, quote unquote, person, like some walking, talking Barbie or Ken doll or whatever, that everyone will love, everyone will know and love, and everyone will be happy because you're this walking, talking Barbie or Ken doll. But deep down inside, it's like a time bomb. Deep down inside, there is something that is going to get out at some point. Deep down inside, you are repressing something. It's like a rice cooker that is just building up pressure, building up steam, and eventually one day it will explode. It will manifest in different ways. It will choose opportunities to manifest, because whatever you repress or suppress, it's not going to remain hidden forever, brothers and sisters. It's going to be there. So this is extremely important. All these topics are important. All these forgiveness opportunities are important. But there are many people who have subjected themselves to this. There are many people that have subjected themselves to this. And, if this world is truly going to have a chance, if this world is truly going to have the beauty that we know that it can have, it's going to depend on all of us just being who we are. And just standing proudly in our uniqueness, in our uniqueness and how unique we are. Brothers and sisters, hand in hand, all bringing different, unique gifts to this world. That is how we save this world. Not by hiding ourselves, not by slicing, by only showing slices of ourselves. And I want to hide these slices. I don't want anybody to know about this, and I'll just let people see this little small sliver of me. That's not going to do anything. So can you imagine walking around the street and seeing just a whole bunch of little small slivers of people? I mean, you're not seeing anything. You're not seeing the world. You're seeing what people want to show you. That's what you're seeing. You're not seeing the real person because everybody's hiding. That is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. When you have to fit in to accommodate others, yeah, it's time to do some forgiveness there. Because that means you can't accept yourself. That means you're somehow ashamed of yourself. That means that you feel guilty about yourself. So yeah, that's when some forgiveness is definitely on the menu at that point. So, what is a shadow? A shadow is something that the person has hidden off from the world. A shadow is something that the person has even hidden from themselves. In some cases, we suppress things that we're ashamed of to the point where we've hidden it from ourselves. We're so successful at suppressing it that we forget that part of us even exists. So a shadow is something that the person has hidden from themselves or they've hidden it from the world. So that is a shadow. And shadows are, when we create shadows of ourselves, that's creating something that really doesn't have to be created, brothers and sisters. It's going to show up at some point. It's going to show up. I know that we've heard, if you've ever heard stories of people, somebody going postal. Okay, that came from an actual event that happened some time ago where a post office worker came with a sub-automatic machine gun and shot a bunch of people in the post office. There was suppression and repression in that person's life. It created a shadow. I'm not saying that that's what everyone is in danger of doing. What I am saying is that when you repress things, it's going to show up at some point. It's going to show up at some point. So might as well forgive it, release it, and just be us. Just be yourself. Just be who you are. If there is fear in being who you are, forgive it. Forgive it, release it, and let it go until you are no longer afraid of being who you are. I'm not going to go too much into that because that's about integrity, and I have another Steve Talks for that, and that's about being true to yourself also. Integrity is about being true to yourself, along with being true to a lot of different things. So I'm not going to talk about that. But as far as a shadow is definitely created by suppression. So, my final thing that I have to say about shadows is whatever we perceive in this world exists somewhere within us. So if you perceive evil in the world, if you perceive the world to be a fearful place, if you perceive chaos in the world and things like that, remember something, brothers and sisters. Whatever it is that we perceive in the world, it exists somewhere within us. And it could be deep, deep, deep down. And that could lead you to the shadow realm. So it is extremely important, brothers and sisters, to forgive. It is extremely important, brothers and sisters, to be in integrity with yourself, to be the real you, to be you, to be the light. So in closing, for forgiveness too, brothers and sisters, in closing, go and be the light that you were meant to be. I want to thank you all for watching Forgiveness too. And I want to wish you a wonderful, wonderful evening.